Hi, this is Danny from DannyWallacePT.com. In this video, I'm going to be very simply teaching you how to engage your core muscles. The core essentially are the muscles that join the ribs and the pelvis together. They're like a bridge. So they basically connect the ribs and the pelvis, and they stop us from falling over when we become unstable. Now, the idea of engaging the core is essentially a way of bracing those muscles so they switch on to activate. So when we're in an unstable environment or a load-based environment where we've got heavy weights that we're lifting, those muscles are working to keep the spine and the pelvis in the right position so we stay safe. Now, in terms of engaging the core, I'm going to keep this very, very straightforward and simple. If you imagine when you're sitting at your desk, you go into what I like to call with my clients office back, which is a bit kind of slumpy spine. This is where the muscles in the back essentially switch off. So the first thing we need to do in terms of engaging the core is stand you nice and tall. All right, and as we lengthen out through the spine, the muscles that extend the back now are doing some work. The second thing that we need to do is we need to think about the muscles that sit underneath the belly button between the hip bones, and we want to try and draw in. Now, as we draw in, you may feel a tightening sensation across the hip bones as you're activating those core muscles. Now, if you feel nothing at all, don't worry. If you're sedentary and you're not doing any exercise at the moment, that's perfectly normal. The stronger you get, the more of a sensation you will feel. And the final thing we want to do is we want to engage your pelvic floor. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail here because I've already created a video about the pelvic floor and it will teach you all about how to engage your pelvic floor. But we engage the pelvic floor, we draw in on the lower tummy and we extend the spine so we're upright and straight. Now, that essentially is how you engage your core, but there are ways of doing it wrong. The first way of doing it wrong is doing all of that and not being able to breathe. So if you're like this and you can't get any air out, you've basically engaged the wrong muscles. You're tensing downwards and you're bracing down, and you've limited the amount of movement the diaphragm can have, and the diaphragm is a muscle that controls our breathing. So you should be able to stand tall, draw in, and still breathe comfortably. That's really important because we want to be able to function when our core muscles are engaged, and if you can't breathe, you can't function, and if you can't breathe, you've essentially engaged the wrong muscles. So ideally, when you engage your core, we want to be able to move around, lift weights, run, do functional things. If you're a mum pushing a pram and you want to engage your core, bracing yourself to the point where you can't breathe is not practical. So to summarize, stand tall, pelvic floor muscles working, check the link for the video if you're not sure how. Pulling on the lower tummy, aim for that tightening sensation, and you will feel much more stable. Now, in practical application terms, the way I do this with my clients, just for a little bit of context, is I ask my clients to imagine 3 lines going through their body. One through the horizontal plane on the collarbone, one across the pelvis on the horizontal plane, and one vertically down through the spine. And I ask them to stand in front of a mirror and just relax. And then I sort of gently, I ask first, of course, if I could move them around. And as I do, they start to kind of shuffle like this, and ask them to visualize those lines. Now, bear in mind, we've not engaged the core at this phase, and the body moves as you can imagine it would. Once I ask them to engage their core, I do the same thing. I do the movement test, and what you find is the body is much more rigid. And if you can breathe comfortably and you can stand comfortably, but more importantly, you don't move around when we're doing that push test, then that's a really, really effective way of checking if the core muscles have worked. And you can do this practically when you're doing exercise. So when you're working exercises like the plank and you engage, you'll find yourself much stronger. If you're doing squats with a bar across your back and you engage your core, you'll find that your back feels much stronger. If you're doing bicep curls with heavy weights and you engage your core, you will find that you're much stronger. And the reason for that is it's a bit like trying to build a house on quicksand. You've got this solid structure on an unstable base, and the solid structure will move and shift over time. If we strengthen the base, the solid structure has nowhere to go. So think of your core muscles like your base. Once they're strong, the rest of the body, the limbs, the legs and the arms have a really strong base to work from. Hope you found this video useful. Please do hit the like button if you've enjoyed it. Please do press subscribe and the little notification bell. Tick that for future updates on all my new content. And if you've enjoyed the video and you think someone else that you know might like it, please do feel free to share it around. Until then, I hope you've enjoyed my core activation video. I will look forward to seeing you next time. You take care. Bye now.